The alien commander watched from the bridge of the warship, his multiple eyes narrowing in disdain as Earth's last defenses crumbled. He couldn't help but feel disappointment. This species had shown promise, or so he'd been led to believe. Their resistance had been weak, their strategy simplistic. The humans had fallen quickly, their planet taken with ease. He'd hoped for more of a challenge. Earth's cities were shattered, and their remaining military forces were in disarray. The alien fleet floated ominously above the devastated landscapes, watching as the humans scrambled in futility. It had been almost too easy. Too easy for an invasion that was meant to mark the pinnacle of their race's conquest. To the commander, Earth was merely another in a long line of conquests, one that had required little effort. His species thrived on combat, on proving their superiority over other life forms, and yet the humans had offered little more than token resistance. "This is what they sent us here for," one of his subordinates grumbled, arms crossed in frustration. "We could have taken this planet with half our forces." "They always overestimate these primitive species," the commander replied, dismissive. "This one will be forgotten soon enough." The alien race had evolved in constant warfare. Every conquest strengthened their empire, and every planet fell with a similar formula: arrive, dominate, and move on. They had no need for diplomacy or negotiations. The commander turned away from the view of Earth's shattered surface and faced the tactical displays. He surveyed the reports coming in from other regions, similar tales of victory and subjugation. The human governments had been toppled, their technology was inferior, and their people were now scattered, barely surviving. Their leaders had been captured or killed. It was a mere matter of days before the planet would be fully pacified. He considered it a done deal, a conclusion that no one would question. His fleet hovered in orbit, maintaining control with little effort. The alien forces monitored the remaining human communications, laughing at their desperation, at how they clung to hope even in defeat. "Pathetic," he muttered. But in their arrogance, the alien commander and his fleet missed the signs. Small, almost imperceptible movements within Earth's population. Scattered reports of human forces regrouping had been filed away without concern. The humans' encryption had improved, their resistance growing, but it was all dismissed as desperation from a defeated species. After all, what could they possibly do now? The humans were broken. The fleet had seen this time and again across the stars, small pockets of resistance, too insignificant to warrant a response. They would crush those remnants soon enough, just as they had done on countless worlds before. There was no need for alarm, not from a species that had barely managed to hold them off for a few weeks. "Their kind always clings to hope," the commander said, almost bored by the routine of it. "They'll scatter into the wilderness, try to mount some pathetic rebellion, and we'll sweep through and finish the job. Let them struggle a little longer. It makes the eventual victory more satisfying." There was a pause in the command room as one of the officers reviewed the data from the latest engagements. A report came through, though it was given little attention. It mentioned small human factions organizing, something about a change in their tactics. But no one seemed concerned. "They're in no condition to strike back," the officer said. "All their key military installations are destroyed, their command structures in shambles. What's left of their forces won't pose any real threat." The commander didn't even bother responding. He knew it was true. The humans were finished. The fleet had seen nothing to suggest otherwise. Their ships hovered above a planet that was already theirs in every way that mattered. The commander wasn't worried, not in the least. He turned his attention back to the trophy worlds they had conquered before, considering which planet would be next on their list. Victory on Earth was already a foregone conclusion. The commander had no reason to doubt that soon, humanity itself would be just another footnote in the chronicles of their empire. It was the same story on every planet, the same cycle. They arrive, they conquer, and the survivors fall into despair, knowing they had been defeated by a force they could never understand or oppose. Humanity, in their eyes, was no different. They had fought valiantly at first, but they were ultimately inferior. Their defeat was inevitable. The alien fleet, now poised to leave the planet under its thumb, reveled in its complacency. There was no rush. The humans had already lost. The commander surveyed the fleets once more, the arrogance of his race imprinted in every decision made, every tactic ignored. This was just another victory in an endless series. It barely warranted a celebration. Yet there was a small, nagging voice at the back of his mind, a warning he had long since learned to ignore. Something about the humans' persistence, their refusal to surrender despite being on the brink of annihilation. He pushed it aside. "Let them fight," the commander said. "It won't matter." His fleet had underestimated humanity from the start, and even now, they were blinded by their previous triumphs. The tactical displays showed no immediate threat, and so the aliens rested, secure in their belief that the war was already won. What they didn't realize, what they couldn't see, was that humanity wasn't finished. The humans were watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. Hidden deep within the chaos and wreckage of their world, they were planning. The fleet's sensors didn't pick up the scattered messages, the encrypted transmissions between small groups of survivors. The alien arrogance was total, their confidence unwavering. This planet, like all others, would fall. There was no need for concern. Not yet. As the alien fleet continued to patrol the planet's skies, unaware of the gathering storm beneath them, humanity's spirit remained unbroken. The war wasn't over. Not yet. The humans had been playing a dangerous game, one that required patience, stealth, and a deep understanding of their enemy's arrogance. Even as the alien invaders declared victory and assumed total control, humanity wasn't ready to surrender. They had learned from the first disastrous wave of attacks. The initial battles had been a lesson, one that came at a heavy cost but provided invaluable insights. The alien fleet was vast, technologically superior, and impossibly advanced. Their weaponry and ships outmatched Earth's forces in every conceivable way. But what the aliens had in power, they lacked in understanding. They underestimated the very thing that had defined humanity for centuries: the ability to adapt, to learn quickly, and to find unconventional solutions in the face of overwhelming odds. The humans were broken, yes, but not beaten. Not yet. Deep within the surviving remnants of Earth's command structure, a handful of human leaders had gathered in secret. Communications were kept to short, encrypted bursts, using primitive methods that the aliens overlooked as insignificant. Hidden bases, deep underground or in the wreckage of cities, became the command centers for what was left of Earth's military and intelligence services. At the center of this effort was a man known only to a few, General Marcus Holden. He had been one of the primary military leaders before the invasion, and when the first wave of defenses had crumbled, many believed him dead. But Holden had survived the chaos, leading a ragtag group of survivors underground, where they had worked tirelessly to plan Earth's retaliation. His strategy had never been about direct confrontation. He knew humanity would lose that way. The aliens had overwhelming firepower. But they could be defeated in other ways, ways the invaders would never anticipate. Holden's plan was simple in theory but difficult in execution. First, they needed to make the aliens believe that the humans were too scattered and disorganized to be a threat. The second part involved exploiting the invaders' overconfidence. The aliens believed they had already won, so they let their guard down. Holden and his team had analyzed the invaders' weaknesses, small as they were, and found cracks in their armor. The aliens relied on a centralized command structure, and their ships communicated in highly predictable patterns. They assumed their technological superiority rendered them invincible, which made them vulnerable to unconventional warfare. Humanity's resistance was designed to be silent but deadly. Guerrilla tactics, sabotage, and misinformation were their weapons. Holden's team had quietly developed new technologies from the scraps left behind by the alien conquest, reverse engineering parts of the invaders' systems while adapting them to their own purposes. It was a hybrid approach, using whatever they could salvage, combined with the ingenuity of Earth's scientists and engineers. They couldn't match the alien weapons directly, but they didn't need to. The plan hinged on deception. Holden and his strategists understood that they needed to make their moves at precisely the right time, striking when the aliens least expected it. They spread rumors, let the alien occupiers intercept false information, and coordinated small, seemingly inconsequential attacks. These skirmishes were designed to appear as isolated incidents, the desperate acts of a few survivors, nothing worth serious attention. It was all part of the ruse. Behind the scenes, Holden's people were building something far more dangerous. The aliens had control of the skies, but Earth still had its own form of weaponry, one the invaders had overlooked. The remnants of Earth's space-based defenses, combined with the planet's natural resources, were enough to create devastating countermeasures. The aliens had underestimated the planet's defenses on a local level, focusing all their efforts on disabling Earth's larger military infrastructure. It was a grave mistake. Holden and his engineers focused their efforts on hijacking what little remained of Earth's orbital defenses, modifying them for a single purpose: to target and disable the alien fleet's critical systems. They couldn't destroy the entire armada at once, that was impossible, but they could take out key ships, disrupt their communication systems, and create chaos within the ranks. While the alien fleet floated in apparent dominance, secure in their victory, Holden's team moved quickly to prepare the final strike. Their goal was to cripple the aliens' command structure, leaving their forces disoriented and vulnerable. Once the chain of command was broken, the human ground forces, scattered as they were, could mount a coordinated series of strikes. Timing was everything. The key to success lay in turning the invaders' own technology against them. Holden's engineers had figured out how to interfere with the aliens' communication systems. They created jamming devices, small enough to be deployed covertly across key locations on the planet, that would interfere with the signals between the alien ships. The invaders, so confident in their control over the situation, had never anticipated that the humans could adapt their technology so quickly. The first test of their new devices came in the form of a small, carefully planned attack on one of the alien scout ships. A team of human operatives managed to infiltrate the outskirts of a destroyed city, where they planted a jamming device near an alien outpost. The device disrupted the scout ship's communications just long enough for a small human strike team to disable it. The scout ship's crew had been too overconfident, too dismissive of the threat. They didn't even see the humans coming. Word of the incident never reached the alien high command. The humans had silenced the ship and its crew, leaving no trace of the strike. It was a test run, but it had worked perfectly. The invaders hadn't even noticed the disruption, assuming the ship had been lost to some random failure. The aliens didn't consider that the humans might be capable of something more. Holden's forces kept to the shadows, continuing to bide their time. They knew that one wrong move could expose the entire operation. The aliens still had overwhelming power, and a full-scale assault would be suicide. But the humans were patient, working under the radar to build their strength. The small victories piled up, each one carefully hidden from the aliens. The invaders grew more complacent by the day, believing that Earth's remaining forces were insignificant, scattered, and leaderless. They saw no real threat. It was exactly what Holden wanted them to believe. The time for the final phase of the plan was approaching. All across the globe, human forces prepared in secret. They knew it would be their only chance to strike back, to show the invaders what they had overlooked: the spirit of a species that refused to die. Holden's forces had one last play to make, one that would leave the aliens reeling. And when the moment came, humanity would be ready. The first strike came in the dead of night, silent and sudden. The aliens were unprepared. Their technology was designed to detect large-scale assaults, massive fleets, and military armadas. What they didn't account for was humanity's ability to strike from the shadows, using speed and precision in ways the aliens had never experienced. The human strike team, small and nimble, launched their attack on one of the outer patrol fleets. This wasn't a large-scale engagement. It was targeted, deliberate. Their goal wasn't to destroy everything in sight. They didn't need to. All they needed was to disrupt the alien communications, to create confusion and chaos in the ranks, and leave the invaders scrambling for answers. The strike team had been practicing for weeks, honing their tactics, understanding the enemy's weaknesses. They used the alien technology against them, jamming signals and disabling systems before the aliens even realized what was happening. It wasn't about brute force. It was about exploiting the gaps in the aliens' defenses. The invaders had no concept of guerrilla warfare. They had always relied on overwhelming strength and technological superiority. The humans, however, had learned the art of fighting with nothing. They knew how to turn every disadvantage into an advantage. The alien fleet was vast, yes, but it was cumbersome, slow to react. The humans moved with precision, striking hard and fast, disappearing before the aliens could mount a proper defense. The first few ships were hit with surgical precision. Human operatives, using modified alien tech, infiltrated the ships and disabled their communication systems from the inside. One by one, the invaders' ships went dark, unable to signal for help, cut off from the rest of the fleet. The human strike team moved like ghosts, leaving no trace of their presence except for the wreckage of alien ships behind them. By the time the aliens realized something was wrong, it was too late. Their entire patrol fleet had been compromised, rendered useless in the face of a human force that they had once considered insignificant. The aliens scrambled to react, but their command structure was slow, bureaucratic, and ill-prepared for such a small, coordinated attack. Their confusion was palpable, and it spread like wildfire through their ranks. The humans didn't stop. This was just the beginning, the opening salvo in a much larger plan. Holden's forces had no intention of giving the aliens time to regroup. They hit the invaders again and again, in quick succession, never allowing them the chance to recover. Each strike was calculated, designed to cripple the aliens' ability to respond effectively. What the aliens saw as random acts of resistance were, in fact, part of a larger strategy. The humans were using the invaders' own technology to map out their fleet movements, identifying weak points, and exploiting them with ruthless efficiency. Holden's team had managed to crack the invaders' encrypted communications, using their own signals to track fleet positions and predict their responses. Every alien move was anticipated, countered before it could even be executed. The aliens, so confident in their technology, had no idea how deeply compromised they were. Each attack seemed to come out of nowhere, hitting key ships and installations with devastating accuracy. And with every strike, the humans left just enough evidence to keep the aliens guessing, to make them question whether these were coordinated attacks or merely the actions of desperate survivors. But the truth was far more dangerous. The humans weren't acting out of desperation. They were acting out of calculated determination. They knew the alien fleet inside and out now, understood its vulnerabilities better than the invaders themselves did. Every move the humans made was part of a larger plan to dismantle the alien forces from within, piece by piece. The first battle ended with a decisive victory for the humans. The alien patrol fleet was left in disarray, ships either destroyed or too damaged to function. The invaders had lost control of the situation, their once tight grip on Earth beginning to slip. But Holden and his team didn't stop to celebrate. There was no time for that. They knew the real fight was only just beginning. Humanity had shown their hand, but only a fraction of it. They had more cards to play, and they weren't going to stop until the alien invaders were completely dismantled. The aliens, for all their technology and firepower, had never faced an enemy like this before. They were used to overwhelming their opponents, crushing resistance with sheer force. But now they were up against something different, an enemy that used intelligence, cunning, and unpredictability to its advantage. The humans knew they couldn't win in a straight-up fight. The alien fleet was too powerful for that. But they didn't need to win outright. All they needed to do was keep the aliens off balance, to sow confusion and doubt within their ranks, to make them question every move they made. And in that confusion, the humans would strike again and again, chipping away at the invaders' strength until there was nothing left. The aliens had made a fatal mistake. They had assumed their technology would be enough, that their superior firepower would guarantee victory. But they had underestimated the humans, as so many before them had done. They had failed to recognize that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their weapons or their ships, it was in their ability to adapt, to learn, and to fight back with everything they had. As the smoke cleared from the first battle, Holden's forces were already preparing for the next phase. The alien fleet was still vast, still powerful, but it was vulnerable now, its weaknesses exposed. The humans had broken through the invaders' defenses, and they weren't about to let up. The next battle would be even more devastating, and the one after that even more so. The invaders had thought Earth was theirs, that humanity had been defeated. But now, they were learning the hard way that victory was far from assured. The humans had only just begun to fight, and they weren't going to stop until every last alien ship was in ruins. The alien fleet, for all its power, was starting to crack. Holden's forces could see it, could feel the momentum shifting in their favor. The invaders were beginning to panic, their once unbreakable confidence shattered. They were no longer the hunters, they were the hunted. And humanity, the species they had dismissed as weak and insignificant, was the one doing the hunting. The war was far from over, but for the first time since the invasion had begun, humanity had hope. And that hope was a weapon far more powerful than anything the aliens had ever imagined. The alien High Command received the first reports of the attacks with confusion and disbelief. This wasn't the type of problem they were used to dealing with. A few ships lost, minor skirmishes at best, but the pattern was starting to emerge. The humans were not as scattered or disorganized as they had assumed. Something else was happening, something far more dangerous than they had anticipated. The Council convened in an emergency session. The highest-ranking officials in the Empire gathered in a room that was usually reserved for celebrating victory. Now, it was filled with tension. Their initial triumph over Earth had lulled them into a false sense of security, and that complacency was beginning to show cracks. The humans were hitting key points in their fleet, and it was becoming impossible to ignore. The commander of the Earth invasion fleet, now summoned to account for these failures, stood before the Council. His initial arrogance had been stripped away, replaced with frustration and confusion. He explained the losses, the strange disruptions in their communications, the attacks that seemed to come from nowhere. But his explanation was met with skepticism and impatience. "They're nothing but survivors," one council member scoffed. "Scattered remnants, fighting out of desperation. This is no coordinated effort. If that's true, then how have they managed to cripple multiple ships in different sectors?" The fleet commander shot back. "This isn't random. They know exactly where to strike." The council murmured amongst themselves, unwilling to fully accept what was being suggested. To them, the idea that humans, primitive, chaotic, and technologically inferior, could be mounting a serious threat to their invasion was unthinkable. Their race had conquered countless worlds, defeated far more advanced civilizations. Humanity, in their eyes, was weak. They had proved that when Earth fell so easily in the initial assault. But the reports were clear. Ships lost, communications jammed, strategic locations compromised. These weren't the signs of a defeated enemy. This was something far more deliberate, and the High Command was beginning to realize that their grip on the situation wasn't as tight as they had thought. One of the council members, older and more cautious than the rest, finally spoke up. "We underestimated them. We assumed they were broken, but it seems their resistance is more organized than we anticipated." The room fell into a heavy silence. No one wanted to admit it, but the truth was becoming impossible to deny. The humans were fighting back, and they were doing it effectively. The invaders had assumed the war was over the moment they landed on Earth, but now it seemed they were still deep in the midst of battle, and one they were starting to lose. "The humans must be dealt with immediately," the older council member continued. "We cannot allow these attacks to continue. If they can disrupt our fleet to this extent, it could inspire rebellion on other worlds. Our empire depends on our ability to crush dissent before it spreads." The fleet commander, his pride wounded by the turn of events, was eager to reclaim control of the situation. "I'll assemble a strike force. We'll crush whatever resistance remains and restore order. This will be over before they can launch another attack." But the older council member wasn't convinced. "You've already underestimated them once. You won't get another chance. We need to consider the possibility that these attacks are part of a larger strategy. The humans may be trying to provoke us into making a mistake." The commander bristled at the suggestion. To him, this was still a matter of brute force. He couldn't fathom that the humans had outmaneuvered them tactically. The Council, however, had seen their share of rebellions across the galaxy. They understood the danger of underestimating a seemingly weaker opponent. Empires had fallen because of such mistakes. Send reinforcements, the commander insisted. Crush them with overwhelming force. The Council, divided in their opinions, debated the next course of action. The more cautious members suggested pulling back, reassessing the situation, and tightening their defenses. They argued that reacting too aggressively could play into the humans' hands, especially if the enemy was expecting such a response. But the younger, more ambitious members of the Council pushed for a swift and brutal response. They were confident that once the full might of their fleet was brought to bear, the humans would stand no chance. To them, this was a simple matter of crushing an insect that had somehow survived a stomp. In the end, the decision was made. They would send reinforcements, but they would also deploy more advanced technology to monitor human movements. They would use their superior intelligence systems to track the humans, locate their hidden bases, and end this rebellion before it could gain any more traction. The humans had surprised them once, but it wouldn't happen again. The fleet commander was given full authority to execute this plan, and he left the council chambers with renewed determination. He was eager to redeem himself, to prove that he hadn't lost control. His confidence was bolstered by the promise of more ships and resources, believing that this time, he would crush the humans once and for all. What he didn't realize was that the humans were already anticipating his next move. Holden and his team had been watching the alien response closely, using their hacked communications to stay one step ahead. They knew the aliens would eventually send reinforcements, and they had prepared for it. The humans had always known they couldn't face the full force of the alien fleet in a direct confrontation. But that wasn't their plan. Instead, they would continue to hit the invaders where they least expected it, using their knowledge of the terrain and their ability to move quickly and undetected. Holden's strategy relied on one key principle: make the enemy overextend themselves. The more ships the aliens sent, the more vulnerable their fleet became. The humans didn't need to destroy every alien ship to win. They just needed to dismantle the invaders' ability to coordinate, to keep them off balance long enough for the cracks in their empire to widen. And the cracks were already showing. The alien high command, so sure of their superiority, was starting to fracture under the pressure. Doubts were creeping in. The older council members, in particular, were becoming wary of continuing the campaign against Earth. They had seen rebellions on other worlds before, and they knew how quickly an empire could fall if it wasn't careful. But the younger members were still blinded by their arrogance, convinced that more force would solve the problem. It was exactly what Holden wanted. The more divided the aliens became, the easier it would be to exploit their weaknesses. The Council, despite their internal disagreements, had made their choice. They would send more ships, more troops, and more resources to crush the humans. But in doing so, they were walking into a trap they couldn't see. Holden and his forces were waiting, ready to strike at the heart of their enemy when the moment was right. For now, the humans remained in the shadows, watching as the alien high command struggled to maintain control. The war was far from over, and Holden knew that the hardest battles were still to come. But the tide was turning, slowly but surely, and the aliens were starting to realize that victory would not come as easily as they had thought. The final battle had been looming for days, both sides preparing for what they knew would be a decisive confrontation. The aliens had sent reinforcements, as expected, bolstering their fleet with additional firepower and more advanced technology. The humans had no illusions about the odds. They were still outgunned, still outnumbered. But they had something the aliens lacked: understanding of their enemy's weaknesses and the ability to use those weaknesses to their advantage. Holden's forces had spent weeks carefully orchestrating the build-up to this moment. Every strike, every feint, every bit of misinformation had been designed to lure the alien fleet into a specific position. The humans had studied the alien response patterns, learning how they reacted to different types of threats. And now, the trap was set. The aliens, for all their might, still believed they could win this war through sheer force. They saw the humans as a nuisance, an obstacle that could be crushed underfoot with enough pressure. But what they didn't see, what they couldn't understand, was that the humans had turned their own strength into a liability. The alien fleet, massive and overwhelming, was now scattered and spread thin, their forces deployed in such a way that made them vulnerable. Holden's plan wasn't about defeating the entire fleet head-on. That would be impossible. Instead, it was about creating chaos, using the alien overconfidence against them. The humans didn't need to destroy every ship. They just needed to break the alien command structure, to throw the fleet into disarray long enough for them to exploit the confusion. The first phase of the battle unfolded exactly as Holden had predicted. The alien ships moved in, confident that this would be the end of humanity's resistance. They deployed in formation, weapons charged, ready to wipe out the last remnants of Earth's forces. But as they moved into position, something went wrong. Their communication systems, already compromised by human sabotage in earlier battles, began to falter. Orders weren't getting through. Ships that were supposed to be coordinating their attacks suddenly found themselves isolated, cut off from the larger fleet. At first, the aliens didn't understand what was happening. They assumed it was a minor glitch, something that could be fixed quickly. But as the minutes passed, the situation grew worse. Entire squadrons were unable to communicate with the command ships. The precise coordination that the alien fleet relied on to maintain its superiority was unraveling. Holden's forces struck hard and fast, hitting the most vulnerable ships first. The human attack was a mixture of sabotage, guerrilla tactics, and precision strikes. They targeted the ships that were critical to the alien fleet's command and control systems, taking them out with devastating accuracy. The aliens, caught off guard by the sudden and coordinated assault, scrambled to respond, but their fleet was already in disarray. The humans used every advantage they had. They knew the terrain, the atmosphere, the electromagnetic anomalies of their own planet. They had adapted to fighting in environments that the aliens had barely considered, and they used those environments to their full advantage. Alien ships struggled with atmospheric interference, their sensors overwhelmed by the sheer unpredictability of Earth's natural defenses. The humans exploited every weakness they could find. As the alien fleet struggled to regroup, the chaos spread. Ships that had once been part of an unstoppable armada now found themselves fighting without direction, their commanders unable to coordinate their efforts. And in the midst of that confusion, the humans continued to strike, picking off key targets one by one. The aliens, still convinced of their superiority, tried to mount a counterattack. But the more they pushed, the more disorganized they became. Their reinforcements, instead of consolidating their power, only added to the confusion. The humans had deliberately scattered their forces across different sectors, creating the illusion of a larger resistance than actually existed. The aliens had fallen for the ruse, deploying their ships in ways that stretched their resources too thin. Holden had anticipated this. His team had studied the alien response patterns and knew that their tendency to overreact would be their undoing. The more ships the aliens deployed, the more vulnerable they became to human sabotage. Every alien ship that moved into position became a potential target for human operatives who had already infiltrated key systems. In the midst of the battle, one thing became clear: the aliens had never truly understood their enemy. They had seen Earth's initial defeat as the final word on humanity's strength, but they had failed to grasp the resilience and adaptability of their adversaries. The humans had learned from their losses, had studied the alien tactics, and had turned that knowledge into a weapon far more powerful than anything the invaders had anticipated. The turning point came when the humans managed to disable the alien flagship's primary communication array. Without that central command structure, the alien fleet was thrown into complete chaos. Ships that had once operated with military precision now moved erratically, some retreating, others firing blindly in a desperate attempt to re-establish order. The humans took full advantage, launching coordinated strikes that further disrupted the alien forces. Holden knew that this was the moment they had been waiting for. With the alien fleet in disarray, now was the time to push harder. The humans ramped up their attacks, focusing on the remaining key ships that still had functioning command systems. Every successful strike brought the alien fleet closer to collapse. It wasn't just about destroying the ships. It was about breaking the morale of the invaders, making them realize that they were no longer in control. And it worked. The alien commanders, once so sure of their victory, now found themselves scrambling to hold their fleet together. But it was too late. The humans had already won the psychological battle, and the physical battle was quickly slipping out of the aliens' grasp. The final blow came when the humans managed to disable the alien fleet's long-range communication systems, cutting them off from their empire. Isolated and surrounded, the remaining alien ships had no choice but to retreat. They had come to Earth expecting an easy victory, but now they were fleeing, their once mighty armada reduced to a shadow of its former self. As the alien ships retreated, the humans didn't pursue. They didn't need to. The message had been sent loud and clear. Humanity wasn't defeated. They had fought back, and they had won. The alien fleet had been broken, their invasion halted, and their empire left to wonder how they had so badly miscalculated. The victory wasn't just about survival. It was about proving that humanity could stand against even the most powerful of foes. The aliens had believed that their technology and military might would be enough to crush any resistance. But they had underestimated the human spirit, the ability to adapt, to learn, and to fight back when pushed to the brink. Holden's forces knew that the war wasn't over. The aliens would regroup, they would return, and there would be more battles to come. But for now, Earth had won a crucial victory. The invaders had been sent running, their fleet shattered, and their empire shaken. And as the smoke cleared from the battlefield, one thing was certain: humanity would never be underestimated again. The humans were not broken. And as long as they fought, the invaders had every reason to be afraid.